So, welcome to the VPM monthly webinar with Crane Insurance Agency. We're talking today, we're going to talk about how to protect yourself from data breaches, scammers, and fraudsters. And I have Alex Araiza and Beth Martin here, both with the Crane Agency. And Alex is actually my insurance agent. So he and I actually do business, and then he brings on Beth for the special, she's like the escalated person when you have to deal with certain things. So thank you, Alex and Beth, for being here, and I'm going to let you guys take it over. As always, if you all have any questions, just throw those in the Q&A, and I will interrupt Beth and Alex to answer any questions you all have. So, Alex, Beth, and no further ado, I'll let you guys take it over from here.
Well, thank you, Pete. As Pete said, my name is Alex Araiza. I'm a commercial insurance broker at the Crane Agency. Pete, we're very happy to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to do this and excited to talk about cyber insurance. Beth, I'll let you introduce yourself and then we can kind of get started on this.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having us again, Pete. This is great. Beth Martin, Crane Agency. I'm the Management Liability and Cyber Practice Leader here at Crane. So half of my time is assisting our brokers with professional liability insurance and cyber insurance, technology, errors and omissions coverage. And the other half is an advisory role over those specialty lines.
Now, I asked these guys to jump on and create this PowerPoint for us because I was getting a lot of questions from a lot of our property management clients. And it just kind of, there was lots of different questions. And I realized that there was a lot of uncertainty out there. So love to hopefully you guys can help solve some of these questions that people have had with regards to liability, cyber, and just, how we could protect ourselves.
Sure. So by way of background for the Crane Agency and our role, we act as insurance brokers. So we don't represent a single insurance company, but rather we represent our clients who need to purchase insurance within the marketplace. And that could be anything from property casualty to what we're talking about today, which is cyber liability insurance and technology errors and omissions. Most importantly for property managers, like many companies, you as a company store and obtain a substantial amount of sensitive information. That could be anything from credit card numbers to email addresses, the physical addresses, the list. I mean, it literally goes on and on.
Security numbers.
Exactly. And there's a lot that goes into not only the protection of this information, but the ramifications that arise if that information is compromised and gets into the wrong hands. So that's really what we're going to focus on today as property managers, what you guys need to do and consider from a cyber liability posture and the risks that are at play. Pete, did you want me to go ahead and share our presentation deck?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. You might need it. Oh, here, I can do this here. Let's see. Can you guys see this all right?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, let me actually do the presentation. Okay, so I'm going to kind of, Beth and I will just use this slide deck just kind of as a guide here, but it's just going to be more of a kind of open discussion. Specifically, that I think a big question that many companies have or may not be aware of what cyber liability insurance is. And the way I look at cyber liability insurance for property managers, but really any company, is protection on two fronts. First, it's first-party coverage to you. For losses that you suffer individually or as a company. That's one tower. The second tower would be third-party coverage. And that's more focused on your responsibility or negligence placed upon you for losing or compromising third-party information. So examples on what that coverage is, from a first-party standpoint, if you suffer a cyber liability loss, there's going to be costs involved and probably a lot of forensics, consulting, investigation into what happened, which all generate a dollar amount that your company will be responsible for. The forensic side of things could be looking into what happened, where did that breach occur, where was there a vulnerability in our company that allowed a bad actor to access our system. That could be so far as PR, getting in front of your clients in the media, making sure that you're containing the damage that might arise after something like a cyber liability loss occurs. So that kind of blends between the first party and third party coverages. Um, it could also be something as far as ransomware. If someone gets into your system unlawfully and locks you out of documents, locks you out of your network, keeps you from being able to do business by demanding money, that's where cyber liability insurance steps in. And then on the third party side, if you have an incident where client information, like I said, email addresses, financial information, HIPAA information, which probably wouldn't really occur here, but insurance information and financials, certainly a realistic scenario. If that information gets out and it gets into the wrong hands, lawsuits certainly would subsequently come at your company, and you would need defense coverage to address those things. The way we look at cyber liability insurance is the funding mechanism really for your contingency plans and your cyber prevention systems that you have in place. Cyber liability insurance is a very important piece of any risk management posture, but with that is a plan in place to deal with claims or losses when they arise, knowing what to do if you have a bad actor access your system, if you have a criminal steal funds, and the training that you implement with your company and your employees. So in a nutshell, that is what cyber liability insurance is. It's defense coverage to you, it's funding to you for those losses, those bad days, but it should also be supported by a strong contingency plan that is understood by top level management and employees as well. Beth, was there anything else you wanted to add relative to just the cyber liability insurance as a definition and as a product?
No, I think you covered all of the items here really well. I will just say that part of having a good response plan, you can get assistance in developing that if you don't have it, or looking through it to test it. You can also have that provided by whoever your cyber liability carrier is. They'll help you with that process as well.
To Beth's point, something that I think is great about the cyber liability products in the marketplace today is that the carriers are really active and encouraging and creating a connection with their clients and offering services that they have to improve your cyber posture and hygiene. And a lot of those services are provided at no cost or at a substantial discount. At Crane, we do quite a bit of cyber liability service support, whether that's just running external scans to see where vulnerabilities might exist, to just having one-on-one conversations as to what concerns might be on a client's mind, to just educating on the market. So all things that you may or may not be aware are out there in terms of services to you, but carriers especially are willing to provide feedback and services to help prevent losses. Of course, it's in their interest, but yours as well.
Alex, on one of
Go
these
ahead.
bullet points, if you can go back real quick, on one of the bullet points, it talks about social engineering. Can you talk a little bit about that as well? Because
Yes.
mainly you talked about somebody kind of penetrating your system through another system, right? Whether it's a denial of service attack or they've figured out how to put some, something in your system, they can pull the information out. But normally, what we see a lot happening out there is actually social engineering. Actually happened to us, and that's why that's why I wanted to bring this webinar to people's attention. So can you talk a little bit about the social engineering aspect and how cyber liability covers that as well?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm glad you brought that up. Social engineering, I would argue, is probably one of the most common cyber losses that we see. Social engineering, for example, is where you have a criminal or a cyber hacker impersonate someone at your company via email, maybe by phone. But a lot of times they'll take an email address from the CFO and maybe change one thing in the actual address itself, email someone in accounting or email an employee and say, for example, hey, our routing number has changed and we need to send out this large payment to a client or a vendor ASAP. Please make this change, send it immediately. And when employees are, under the gun, when things are busy, it's easy for those things to just be addressed without second guessing or questioning, hey, is this actually a legitimate request? And as a result, a lot of money can accidentally be sent out to the wrong place, to the wrong person as a result of these social engineering claims. So in essence, social engineering is someone impersonating someone in your company and duping employees, management, someone within the company to send out funds or to do something that's harmful to the company itself.
Something that we can see from time to time, especially in property management, is somebody stating that they own the house and that, hey, I'm an owner and I need you to change this account number and routing number. And so this would protect us from that. Correct.
Exactly. And with that are, really good practices to have in place. One example of many would be not allowing changes like that just to be done only by email, but also an email plus a phone call to verify, just as an example of a preventative measure that can be put in place. But like I said, it's really easy when people are busy during the day. Any weekday can get very chaotic, and a request like this, which should typically be a 2-minute change, can be easy just to address and move on without giving it further thought.
Yep. Thanks, Alex.
Sure. Why this matters, we kind of touched on this, but again, this is given the volume of cyber activity and chance for large dollar amount losses to occur for a number of reasons within the cyberspace. Most companies have have an internet presence. I would almost argue just about every one. I'd be hard pressed to think of a company that doesn't, meaning that there is some level of online cyber network activity that takes place. And everyone works off of a computer. There's information stored on that. If the wrong people get into those systems, get a hold of that information, that leads to cyber claims. And I'll let Beth kind of chime in on anything else that is on her mind that we see, and when we discuss this with clients, why it's so important.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have sensitive data that you have care, custody, and control of, you have to have systems and processes in place to protect it.
Yeah, especially as property managers working with different homes, clients, rent payments, mortgage payments, anything that might come into play here, especially with financial information. Certainly crucial information to protect. To give you an idea of what the marketplace looks like for cyber liability insurance, I'll kind of kick it off with a high level and then turn it over to Beth. But about 3-4 years ago, it was really tough to get cyber liability at a competitive price, and that was mainly due to a high volume of losses. Within the past few years, the market has gotten a lot softer in terms of pricing and access, which is great for companies that are looking to buy. Primarily because of controls that have been put into place as requirements. And I think one of the most common and probably the easiest control that we see that has an impactful benefit is multi-factor authentication. It's still fallible, of course, but I think just having that as a starting point has had a tremendous effect on the market and reduced cyber claims notably. And as a result, the carriers have been able to be a little bit more aggressive with the pricing that they offer to clients, and their ability to actually offer quotes to companies in a variety of industries. Beth, I'll turn it over to you just to kind of talk about some of the higher level stuff.
Yeah, well, if you don't have cyber insurance now, the good news for you is that it's the best time to get some, because as Alex alluded to, the market has really opened up. There's more capacity, which means there's more carriers that are willing to offer cyber insurance limits. So you can get coverage for 1 million up to 3 million for relatively cheap premium right now. And so a lot of the carriers have kind of driven the controls and the systems like MFA, as Alex was speaking of, and other system controls to try to align like the coverage that they're offering with the client's controls in place, because everyone wins when everything is safe and secure. So with that, the controls have gotten better on the client side. The coverage has gotten broader on the carrier side. So we're kind of in this soft space where you can get access to great insurance, you can get access to great tools from the cyber provider, and you're not spending as much as you would have even 2-3 years ago.
And a lot of times, if you're a company that has a software product, we have combined forms where there's technologies, errors, and omissions with cyber liability insurance. And we're talking about the cyber piece because that's really the crux of all of this. But there's also a professional side. If you have a software that you sell, if there's an error and omission made, in providing that software. If the software airs out, leading to financial damage to a client, there's also that piece of it that can provide defense coverage and protection on a broader scope, depending on, you know, your individual needs. And really what underwriters are going to look for are what industry are you in? What controls do you have in place, such as the multi-factor authentication, endpoint detection, among many others. They'll look at loss history, of course, to try to get an understanding of, have you had losses? You know, what happened? What are the size? What has been changed since that loss occurred? And then they'll also look at just, you know, individual company details, number of records you have on hand, the size of the company from a revenue standpoint. So that all plays into where the ultimate pricing falls. But the main takeaway here is that, as Beth said, this is a great time to get into the market if you don't have cyber liability insurance. Now, I know on everyone's mind are...
Got a couple of questions here.
Sure.
First one is, does cyber liability cover you if an employee steals data? So employee downloads a bunch of socials and sells them, or does create some damage. Is that covered under cyber liability?
Beth,
that's a good question, Alex. Yeah, if you want me to take that one. Yeah. So there are a couple of different ways you can approach this question. The first being, if you are a technology company and you're writing the technology and one of your employees goes rogue, if you are, and steals information based on the work that they're doing, there is coverage under a cyber policy for rogue employees of technology firms. But for like a property manager, you have an employee that steals or embezzles funds from the company, that would be part of a crime insurance policy. And that's a discoverable a theft. So when at the time you discover that they're stealing funds or embezzling, you report that to your crime insurance carrier.
And if they embezzle, but what if they're taking personal data from people? Is there somebody now is that this crime policy that's kind of stealing?
No, if they're taking funds or embezzling funds, that's a crime policy. If they're stealing personal data to sell to the black market, that's a cyber insurance coverage. Yeah.
And Pete, that would come back to the third-party column of the cyber coverage, where the affected party whose data was sold in the black market, if they suffer a loss,
sue us, right? So let's say Empire Property Management had somebody, and that person started selling data. Somebody catches wind, they sue us. The cyber liability would defend us if we found out that a team member went rogue and was selling data.
Yes. So if your company or any company has an employee that starts taking data and selling it off, and in turn the affected party sues your company, the liability portion of the cyber policy provides you with defense.
All right. So now we've established that. What happens if that person's a contractor?
Well, as a contractor, and I'll let Beth elaborate further too, but as a contractor, they would still be considered an employee of your company. And as such, if they're working for you on a project whereby they have access to personal information that your company stores, the same circle is created whereby that information is stolen, a third party is damaged from personally identifiable information being released, and any lawsuit that you would receive would be covered under the third party portion of the cyber liability policy.
Got it.
Right. Yeah, it's more about the data and who's in charge and keeping the data secure than it is about who gets to it or who's the reason for the breach.
Got it. Makes sense.
So cyber claims, there are a number of them, and hypotheticals can certainly get tricky. One of the most, I guess, frustrating responses that we get that we see or sometimes respond with in insurance is it depends, but it truly comes down to the circumstances of a loss. Now, these cyber claims here are, pretty common examples that are a little bit more straightforward. We discussed social engineering, for example. Someone impersonates a CFO in your company and tells an accountant or someone in the accounting department to redirect funds on an invoice. That would be a social engineering claim. We also have instances, we know of companies who have had very sensitive information. An aerospace company had documents that were basically stolen, and the company was locked out of those drawings, those documents that they needed for a client. And the cyber criminals basically extorted them, saying with ransom, saying, we need $50,000 or we'll destroy the documents. Pay us $50,000, we'll release the documents to you. So the cyber carrier can step in and provide support on those types of events. Some of the other ones discussed are, company or bad actors getting in and just redirecting funds, stealing from you directly, as an example. And part of the lock on another scenario, when you have a bad actor locking you out of your system, there's also concern with your ability to continue to operate your business. If you primarily rely on your network, your software, your network systems to get work done, being locked out of a system like that would, of course, have an impact on your ability to provide your service. And cyber liability policies provide business income coverage for those events. So while you're trying to regain control of the system, deal with the loss, the carrier and the policy can step in and provide you with income that you normally would have had to keep you afloat and keep you going. Beth, were there any other examples you wanted to point out? I know we have quite a few up on here, but I kind of wanted to touch on the ones that we see most commonly.
Yeah, I would say number one, 100% of the time, every single day, the phone rings here because someone has experienced social engineering and wired funds to the wrong place. So if you at least start there and kind of work on that system first, then you can run some other scenarios and try to define in your response plan what you would do in different scenarios. But that would be the most important one, I think.
Yeah, it's actually wild to consider how many emails I get on a weekly basis from our president, or our supposed to be president, saying, hey, this is an urgent matter. No phone calls, just respond by email. Luckily, a lot of these social engineering attacks, or at least the ones that I've experienced personally, are pretty, are blatantly obvious. But sometimes they can be pretty savvy. So
It's true.
So getting into defense and just improving your posture as a company. I mean, there could be a whole seminar just on this topic alone, but we wanted to touch on some high level and just common security measures that can be put into place. I think one really good step as any company, if you haven't already, is just to kind of get a sense of, where do I stand in terms of my vulnerabilities? How exposed am I? What is what we would call our cyber posture? And cyber liability carriers can assist with that, just to kind of give you a full rundown. Certainly the underwriting process is provides a bit of insight into that. But going further, just really kind of, getting just a fitness test done in terms of cybersecurity. And that could be evaluating the types of measures that you have in place, such as multi-factor authentication, endpoint detection, as two examples. And then your processes for approving things like payment changes or big transactions, anything that might come up on a regular basis. How do you process those, and what is the process for that? And that goes back to having a good system in place, so that when there is a loss, you know exactly what needs to be done to address it. And then the cyber carrier can come in and provide the insurance piece of that to fund the loss and protect you guys, provide the defense and the settlement necessary. One other thing that we see that has a pretty substantial impact is just ongoing training. At Crane, we are required to do quite a bit of training ourselves through just monthly, almost weekly, short video clips. And a lot of them, are 5 to 10 minutes long. They don't take up much time. And it's not that it's necessarily groundbreaking information, but I think the important piece of having those ongoing training videos is that it keeps it fresh in your mind.
Top of mind.
And it's really measures and just common sense things that, as long as you kind of have that trickle coming at you every single week or every few weeks, when you spot those potential threats, you see those emails that look suspicious, you're just reminded to take a second look, to slow down for a second. So it's a really helpful reminder in that sense. The other item we have up on here from a bullet point is data management. Of course, I think everyone's aware of the importance of backing up data, but if you're not doing that, or you haven't done it in a while, having a routine process for having that done makes the recovery process after a loss a lot easier. But again, the defense portion of this, from what a company can do, covers hundreds of things, but is also needs to be tailored to each individual company. What Crane does versus what VPM Solutions does could be a lot different, and that's just depending on what that company specifically needs in terms of defense processes and just internal security measures that everyone follows. Beth, anything else you wanted to add there?
I think you've covered all of that really well. I think that the only thing I would say is probably the most important. It doesn't have to be super complex. Your site, the data that you have and the controls that you have around it. You can get really specific, and you can spend a whole bunch of money on IT's security solutions, but really the easiest way in is not having MFA. So if you can at least do that, which is relatively easy for a good IT professional, you start there and work your way up to more complex cases of security management. That would be my takeaway for you.
I think with anything, when you're introducing something new or trying to make a business change, but a lifestyle change in a way, I think of this, personally, just incrementally adding things. It doesn't have to be done overnight, but just identifying where there might be weaknesses is a great first step, and being able to slowly make headway into protecting your company from these cyber losses is truly impactful. Certainly the reality for the world we live in now, that's a pretty obvious statement, but as technology develops, it seems that how savvy cyber criminals get, only increases as well. It seems that they are able to identify new and frankly innovative ways to steal information, money, and access our systems. So it's kind of a constant process of being vigilant and trying to stay up to date in every way possible. And that's where the cyber carriers and professionals step in to help out. With that in mind, we included an implementation roadmap just with examples on how you could do like a 90-day starter plan to improve your cyber posture. A lot of these things you might already be doing, which is great. But just use this as a guide. And Beth and I are certainly here as resources to anyone on the call who just has questions, would like to explore cyber insurance further, or just wants to ask us our opinion on certain things. If there's something that you see in your company and you want some feedback on that, or just want to have a very general discussion, we're always happy to do that. We're happy to be a resource for you guys. With that said, we definitely want to open it up to questions. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to jump on the call and talk about this important coverage.
All right. Well, thanks, Alex and Beth. Appreciate you guys and great information. I am going to take any questions if everybody has any questions, and I'll share my screen as well here. All right. So if you have any questions, just jump them in the Q&A. And if you want to come to our next webinar, we're going to talk about great hiring starts with great recruiting. We have Dylan Scroggins with the Calmar Group. You could hit that, and I'll give everybody 30 seconds on that, and then scan that code. And then if you want to, there's Alex's information. If you have any questions that you want to talk to Alex directly, you can reach out to him. And I think that's everything. Beth, Alex, I appreciate you. Let me just check one more time if we had any questions here. Q&A. No, I think we got them all answered up. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.
We appreciate it. Thank you all.
All right. See you, everybody.